Now initially, I wasn't sure exactly what to start with for this build, but I quickly realised that God of the Sea statue head entrance we planned would really help me work out the scale this thing needed to be. So, taking inspiration from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, I moulded this Poseidon-esque head from Prismarine, with its mouth open, ready to swallow up those of you who'll be crazy enough to venture into this monument. But why does the entrance depict the God of the Seas? Well, that all ties into that powerful artifact that I mentioned earlier, lost by the fleeing witches many centuries ago. The mysterious artifact, which was an enchanted heart of the sea, was accidentally dropped into the ocean, swept out with the tide, forming a powerful conduit in the USW seas. For years, the conduit sat alone on the ocean floor, absorbing the ocean's power and gradually growing in size, transforming the surrounding landscape until eventually it was discovered by adventurers from a distant land. They were pirates, travelling to the USW in search for the lost treasure of the evil pharaoh. But they ventured too close to the witch's mushroom swamp island and were struck by a devastating spell. Their ship washed up on the shores of the desert without its crew, with the first clue to the treasure hunt left inside. The crew were seemingly lost to the treacherous waters until they discovered the heart of the sea. To their surprise, once they neared its glowing light, they could somehow breathe underwater and gained other powers too. It had saved them from a grisly fate and actually gave rise to a new race of people thanks to the powers of the Heart of the Sea. And so they believed that the God of the Seas had plucked the heart from one of the witch's pockets, placing it on the ocean floor in its rightful place. The Mer people worshipped the God of the Seas as their saviour, and of course included a depiction of him in their monument. Anyway, while explaining some of that crazy backstory, we now have a blocked out monument structure heavily based on the original vanilla version, a grand God of the Seas statue head entrance, and some small trident bearing guards that I've put to the side for now. We'll come back to those right at the end of the monument's exterior transformation. With the main structure laid out, it's time for the fun part. Lots and lots of detail. Even though the vanilla ocean monument is a bit of a strange looking structure, it's actually arguably one of the most detailed structures in the game, so I had to do it justice. Starting with the bottom layer, I designed the main supporting pillars and added some intricate archways, incorporating plenty of sea lanterns to keep these details nice and visible later on. I then moved on to the next layer, detailing the smaller pillars and adding a wavy design under the slopes of the roof. This part is actually called the pediment in classical architecture. And before we move on to the next layer, I decided to tweak our God of the Seas head to match the materials more coherently with the rest of the monument and add sea lanterns into his eyes to make them pop. Next up, mimicking the other small pillar designs, I started detailing the next layer, and you can see things are really starting to take shape nicely now. Continuing with these ornate details, I created a design to line the bottom walls. Even though they're pretty hidden for the most part, I wanted to pay attention to every detail here and make this as immersive as possible for you guys. And so, to finish up the detailing of the main structure, I got to work on the top level, also adding a small platform at the back where something special will sit later on. At the top of the monument, I added a staircase to the top platform, which I think fits really nicely with the roof. I then finished up the front pediment with one last pattern, before moving on to tackle the top platform, which actually plays host to that fabled artifact I mentioned earlier, the enchanted Heart of the Sea. After serving as salvation for the lost souls of the stranded pirate crews, the heart was positioned in pride of place on top of the monument, allowing its powers to reach far across the ocean, transforming the surroundings and its inhabitants into something magical. As well as the Heart of the Sea being key to the pirates' survival and the emergence of the Mer people, there were 6 large shells scattered near one another, which the stranded pirates used for shelter before they were able to build their own infrastructure. They later became known as the 6 Shells of the Sea. Without their protection, the ocean may have never have seen the emergence of an entire new race of people. And so, once they were strong enough, the founding crews of the Mer people led the inhabitants of the ocean and instructed that a monument was to be built and house the Heart of the Sea to protect them and what was left of their treasures from harm, with the 6 Shells of the Sea placed atop the roofs for the founding crews to reside in. With the 6 shells now all cozy in their new homes, it was time to make the final adjustments to the exterior of this monument, creating a more natural sandbank towards the entrance of the monument, and finally returning to those statues that we set aside earlier. Now, as you can see, I originally built these statues with legs, but that doesn't entirely fit with the story. Over centuries, the first lost pirates were joined by many more lost souls, cursed by the witches or caught out by the tentacles of the giant glow squid. The community quickly advanced, with rapid evolution occurring thanks to the magical heart conduit. The Mer people became their own race, their bodies completely adapting to their environment, which explains this Mer guard that I've just whipped up to guard the main entrance. However, in recognition of their earlier, pre-evolution advancements, they also built the Seahorse Guards. They were the original military force of the Mer people. It was essentially their underwater cavalry. They protected the people from harm's way for centuries before their rapid evolution equipped them more appropriately to protect themselves. And so, they also sit in front of the monument, their reputation as fierce warriors providing a warning to attackers and treasure hunters. It looks like the exterior of our monument is complete, and it's really looking like an epic centerpiece. The resemblance to the vanilla monument is pretty uncanny as well. Maybe I didn't get too carried away this time. The main entrance was designed to lure in enemies and thieves, where they would enter a maze of corridors followed by a labyrinth of rooms, eventually losing themselves in the complexity of the structure or stumbling across one of the guardians of the ocean. So I plotted out a grid on each floor, making lots of edits to complicate things. And you've also got to remember that inside an ocean monument, the exits and entrances to each room can come from any angle, so this is going to be pretty confusing to explore on this scale. I wanted to keep things relatively simple and authentic to the vanilla structure, but added plenty of details to the corridors and rooms, with the entrances and exits varying every time, and of course scattering in some of those special room types as well. So keep your eyes peeled for loot and sponge. To be honest, working out where all the special rooms are might just about be the only way to work your way around this crazy maze. That, and a whole lot of potions and doors. Depends on your playstyle, I guess. And on this floor, we're adding the Guardian Chambers in the wings, those parts of the monument that jut out at the front. I thought it'd be cool to incorporate a few elements into this Guardian Chamber, so I added in some large central pillars, as well as a couple of treasure chamber elements. Since the Mer people captured the Guardians to protect their treasure, it seemed fitting to add some treasure in this room. And if you manage to outsmart these Guardians, then you'll be rewarded with some loot. And to finish things up, I planned out the fourth and final floor before adding in all of the walls and secret rooms and moving on to the Grand Elder Guardian Chamber, which I just had to turn into the ultimate underwater boss battle room. I added in some giant pillars, a large floor pattern and a platform, with of course a little stash of loot to reward you if you made it this far. Props to you if you managed to get through all of this in survival. I'm super happy with how this interior turned out, and I can't wait to play it with Steph. Even though I built it, there's no way I'll remember how to get through all of these floors, and that's without even dealing with the Guardians.